Another edition of Riding Home. Georgia's got a few rivals. One of the big three for them, the Auburn Tigers. Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry joining me. Matt, what's the latest with Auburn now?
Yeah, it seems like I don't want to say it's a downward spiral, Dean, but Cadillac Williams just left the coaching staff. He's a guy who was kind of a legend at Auburn, right? And he left on his own, I think. I don't think he's coaching anywhere else. Head coach Hugh Freeze is taking over the play calling duties, got rid of his offensive coordinator after 1 year. They're recruiting well, and they're certainly using NIL as well as anyone out there. I say as well as anyone out there, maybe just to the full extent, but it doesn't seem like they're gaining as much traction as maybe the program would have liked in year two under Hugh Freeze. I do think he's still an upgrade from Brian Harsin, who was just, I
Better
guess,
fit.
deliberately trying to run the program into the ground. It is a better fit, but I'm starting to wonder, are things going to get better for Auburn this year, or are they going to get worse? I know they almost beat Alabama, and they played Georgia hard for 3 quarters. That was real cute, right? But I just they're the Auburn Tigers. There are high expectations over there. I'm not sure when we're going to see a lot from them next year or in a couple years.
All right, so I have a couple of things to say about this actually too. I have a little bit of insight on this. They open up in 24 with Alabama A&M, then they play Cal at home, then New Mexico at home, and Arkansas at home, and Oklahoma at home. So they're going to open up with 5 straight home games. I do not at all think it's out of the question for them to get out to a 4-0 start, and very possibly 5-0 before they get to Athens. I mean, Oklahoma is fine, but it's hard to win at Auburn. Then they got Georgia, week off before Mizzou, so they got back to back Oklahoma, Georgia. That's not easy. They got off then at Missouri, at Kentucky, Vanderbilt. That will be tougher than people think. And then they're going to get Louisiana Monroe the week before A&M, and so they got a back to back of going of uh, A&M at home and then going to Alabama. What I would say about the situation at Auburn is it's actually worse than people I think realize. Okay, and you and I have actually not talked about this yet, and I'm not going to spill bunches of secrets, but I actually do think it's a little bit jumpier than people imagine, and it's sort of one of the more I would say intelligent posters on message board on dog posts or message board said, worse than like what Auburn's used to, and I would say it's pretty bad actually right now. It's worse than people realize. I think when Cadillac's leaving, it's one thing, but yeah, man, like
Yeah,
that's a
it,
problem. That would be
it's
like
a
C.J. Spiller leaving Clemson. Then you'd be like, hey, what's going on over there?
yeah. I mean, would Brian McClendon leave Georgia on his own? Would Todd Hartley, Mike Bobo, these Georgia
No,
guys would ever leave on their own? No.
but it's. Let me just spit this out too,
Yeah,
Matt. I think this is. I think it's not all on Hugh, although right now it currently is. There's a something's going on strange, but this is a problem at Auburn that's existed now pre Brian Harson. Bo Nix leaves and has tremendous success at Auburn. Leaves Auburn and has tremendous success at Oregon. That to me was like red flag city. What's wrong here? And that started during Harson, I guess. Now I say that, but man, I don't know. I just think right now under Hugh's time at Auburn, this is the jumpiest time I've seen or heard.
yeah, it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of positivity, like a lot of happiness coming out of the program right now. And it's too bad because I do remember this rivalry being back and forth for so long. And there was a while where the road team was winning all these games, but it is one of the best rivalries, I think, in college football. And right now, Georgia's taking over this rivalry. And we're going to talk about the Dogs for the next 8 months, but occasionally we're going to look and see what's going on with some of their big rivals. And I think you said in the past, Georgia Auburn should never go away. They should play every single year. And right now, I don't even know who the quarterback is right now, Dean. I just can't see Auburn beating a Kirby Smart coach Georgia team anytime soon. Maybe I'm wrong. And they gave Georgia a real fight last year on the Plains. And it's a different game because that is one of the best environments that we get to see, or at least, I don't want to speak for you, but it's one of the best environments I see on a, every other year basis. But I don't see them beating Georgia in Athens, definitely anytime soon. But it just makes me wonder, is Hugh Freeze the guy? I think it's too early to tell, but he is bringing in 5 stars. And for the Auburn fans who are hate watching this video right now, if you think these 5 stars are going to stay at Auburn for 3 years and just not enter the portal at some point if things don't get better soon, I got some bad news for you, because these guys want to come in and not only play right away, which they could at a place like Auburn. They don't have this crazy full talented roster. This is a place where 5 stars can come in and compete for playing time. But if they're not getting that playing time, they're not catching all these passes, and they're not winning games, these guys might be leaving sooner than later. So I do understand that they're bringing in some top talent, especially at some skill positions, but it needs to get better quickly, or this thing could continue to spiral for 2, 3 years. I wonder how long is his leash, and that's crazy to say. The guy's only been here 1 year, but they've got to get it rolling.
Okay, couple of different things.
Yeah,
A, this is a great time at Auburn, and I know that sounds nuts, but these people just rolled Toomer's corner because of Nick leaving. Nick Saban's gone. That is their Wicked Witch of the West, and he's left, Matt. That Georgia's really good. I think they'll survive with that. You mentioned earlier these two should play every year. I completely agree with that, and the two schools have done all they can to play every single year with one another. I don't know if that's. I mean, I think that's going to happen in the future. There's not a certainty yet. There's a lot of strangeness going on here. Auburn is a school that never got in the 14 playoff. They totally can get into a 12-team playoff, but I don't know where they're at with Hugh, and I just that was a Auburn hire, and I don't know that anybody else would hire him. They did. Well, and
yeah,
then the
yeah,
thing about it is someone else will be the next head coach at Auburn, and I know this is just as completely speculative in every single way, but if something really happens bad there, if I were Dabo Sweeney, I would want this job. The Alabama job would have been a lot of trouble. It would be hard to go be the coach of your arch rival from college, but they're a cult just like Clemson.
yeah,
You're in the SEC. You get to restart the clock. He might not have any real interest in it, but Auburn's always going to have get attention, but they're always, always, always going to be second fiddle. It will take 200 years before they're not second fiddle in that state. You and I see it all the time when we go over there. So they have a fundamental problem. But when you're losing Cadillac, man, that's bad, Matt. And I'll add, I think it's worse than people think. I mean, I have some ways to know that sort of stuff. I think it's worse than people think. And I think if that's true, then Hugh might not be there as long as maybe even
yeah.
you and I expect. I mean, I don't expect him to leave before the end of the 24 season, but yeah, they got to kind of get it going. And that record at the beginning, September is going to be important for Auburn and Hugh and all of that. But I think it's been a jumpy winter.
Yeah, well, Hugh Freeze needs a quarterback, and maybe the future is the incoming freshman, Walker White. Can't wait for the Breaking Bad memes when he becomes that starting quarterback there. But he's a guy with some potentially from the state of Arkansas, I believe, but big kid with a big arm. He's got to have a quarterback, number one. Number two, I want to go back on what you kind of just said. They'll always be second fiddle to Alabama.
Always.
Was there a time in the 90s with Tuberville where they were beating Alabama? Was that the only maybe few period of time where they weren't? Or were they still second fiddle because of the history of the two
Yeah,
programs all time?
let me be more precise with the statement. I'm not suggesting they won't rip off 5 wins in a row against
Yeah,
Alabama. I've seen that, and what I'm saying is the Nick Saban time has cemented even further that this is like an 80-20 state. I don't even know if it's sometimes it feels worse than that. Go ahead.
when I was a young pup, I lived in Alabama as a kid, and it was in that time where Auburn was beating Alabama. It was the mid 90s. And in that town, there were a lot of Auburn people. I think the town was a little closer to Auburn than Tuscaloosa, but at that time, I remember Auburn fans were happier. Auburn families were happier. We went to church with a lot of them. and it seemed like there were a little more. Now, maybe it was just that period of time.
It was that period of
Uh,
time.
had to have been then, right? Yeah.
Well, I think if you're an Auburn person, they are very similar to Clemson, but Clemson has had more success in the state rivalry. Obviously, they've dominated theirs, but you can't. The shadow of Nick and Bear and all of the Alabama isms. It's a lot. Hugh Freeze is perfect for Alabama, for Auburn. Perfect for them. Dabo would be perfect for them. Someone who's like, there's always something wrong, or like you're aggrieved for some dumb reason or another. That's perfect for Auburn because they always have, to steal Kirk Herbstreit's favorite line, a chip on their shoulder. They've always got some problem or another. I mean, whether it's real or not is, whatever. But Auburn's going to have to figure out their way. Bruce Pearl was perfect there. That was a great hire for them. I think, I think Hugh Freeze could be a really good hire but I don't know what's going on underneath the surface over there, but it seems like something's not going right. They have not had the right athletic director. They moved that guy out. But I'm remembering some of the conversations in the most recent past, and I'm going to write about this and what we're hearing soon at Dog Post. But Auburn just can't ever seem to get on the same page. That's really the problem more than anything else. Because, Matt, if you think about in this century of college football, Auburn has had 3 really good teams: 04, 10, and 13. 2 of those did not play for a national championship. It did play for, I'm sorry, didn't win the national championship. One of them didn't play for it, which was wrong. They can't get out of their own way the other basically 21 years. Now, that's an over-exaggeration. They can't get out of their way the other 18 years. And Auburn and Georgia, Bama and Georgia being good, but that's part of Auburn's life. So yeah. Hugh's got to get it together. Losing Cadillac is massive red flag for me, the same way losing Bo Nix was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy because that 04 team was better than their 10 and 13 team, too. Yeah. That 04 team was
the defense
great.
Was, for sure.
That was a fantastic team. And in 2002, they were really good, too, when Georgia beat them. And one of the biggest plays of program history there. But things are only going to get tougher with Oklahoma and Texas coming in, and LSU, I think, being on the rise. Maybe they can benefit from trying to beat Alabama with this new staff that's coming in. But Ole Miss is on the rise too.
I think that Bama having change should be a rebirth at Auburn. They couldn't get it. I mean, and they had a lot. They actually had some success against Nick, more than Kirby's had, but over an extended period of time. But it should be a rebirth. But is that what we're getting?
It doesn't look like it, but that door is open for them to get a couple on Alabama. And I know the fan base is incredibly passionate. They are a true SEC, Auburn over everything. They are desperate for a winner. They're desperate for a head coach that can get them back to competing for SEC championships and maybe more. So we'll see if they get there. I'm not super optimistic that they will. And it's a shame because this rivalry used to means so much more than I think it does now. It's still big, but if Georgia's just going to beat Auburn every year for the foreseeable future, they're
going to lose.
Feel as great.
No, they'll lose.
That's something. I don't know if Hugh Freeze is going to be. He's going to have an elite quarterback, and he's got to have the full, complete team, and he might have to do it on the plains because, as we know, some crazy things always seem to happen over there.
I just think I will say that I know that people at the league do not watch this show, but they
Most
really
don't.
should. They should. But what I would say is losing Georgia Auburn is not like losing Alabama Ole Miss, or it's losing Alabama Tennessee, losing Georgia Auburn. Those are what the SEC has always been. I think losing those games, you better really watch it. So I don't. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, which is another discussion for another time. Auburn, Georgia is extremely well watched, but I don't think you want to lose those type of games. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next show.